So, as I began to cover the story of Ti and Tiny and the various allegations against Ti and Tiny, as well as the dispute or feud between Sabrina Peterson and Ti and Tiny, I kind of noticed that people were coming to my YouTube channel and they were posting lots of comments saying that Ti is being targeted because of his activism in the community. And I had people come to the page and they were actually saying that, this is all the Illuminati. And some people were saying this is a humiliation ritual for Ti. So I wanted to go out and I wanted to do a quick search to see if there was anything to these things that people are saying about, Ti and activism. And I guess I have been asleep personally. I didn't know how active Ti was in the community. And what I'm about to read to you now is this open letter that's actually on Ti's page. It's difficult to see, so it's probably going to be difficult to read. But essentially, there's this is a letter where Ti is trying to get reparations, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and dive straight into it. And it just says open letter to Lloyd of London from descendants of the enslaved, right? And it starts off, I, Clifford Harris, as a representative of the descendants of the enslaved Africans, am placing Lloyds of London on notice. It has come to our attention that your company was built on the blood, sweat, and tears of our ancestors. We have seen you apologize for your shameful role in the transatlantic slave trade, but that simply isn't enough. I must take a direct aim at the fact that while many corporations and organizations like yours denounce past behavior, verbally accept accountability, and even share public sentiments of contrition, there never seems to be enough, if any, consideration or serious discussion around how to repay the descendants of the African slaves. The African slaves who has yet to be made whole on the 400 years of broken promises. The African slave who was humiliated, terrorized, beaten, and broken, who until this very day is left to face the long term impact of this systemic racism and oppression. The generation struggles that our community face stretch far beyond individual household into our community. The generational struggles that our community face stretch far beyond our individual households and into our community, onto our streets, and throughout our neighborhoods. It rears its ugly head in the way we are educated, insured, cared for, and even policed. This evidences the fact that we are past the point of apologies. It should not come to a surprise that we are demanding demonstrable action. Lloyd owes our people economic recompense, and we demand reparations now. The swell of protests and outcries over racial injustice has brought about to light the worldwide pandemic of systemic racism lives on and continues to oppress us, the descendants. The pain, degradation, and fear is something we live with every single day. We were once counted as three-fifths of a person, and in many ways, it still feels this way. Your commitment to owning up to your role is admirable, and we certainly want to acknowledge the sentiment, as this is more than hundreds of other companies have done. More importantly, we note that you have committed to invest in programs to attract Black and minority ethnic talent, review its artifacts to ensure that they were not racist, and support charities and organizations promoting opportunity for Black and minority ethnic people. This, however, is far too vague. We demand specific call to action that includes but is not limited to direct reparations be made to families who were ripped away from their native lands and sold as property, while your company profited from the whole shameful endeavor. Your commitment to reparations is an honorable one, but commitment without tangible actions is merely lip service. Apologies will no longer suffice. We are seeking a clear path forward to specifically address the years of enslavement, systematic oppression, and institutional racism that we have endured since slavery. Given that it would not be true reparations if we did not address how we will be made whole, we demand a share of the. So it looks like this particular letter cuts off. I have actually searched the internet. I couldn't find a complete version of this open letter. All I have, it's actually what's on TI's page. So apparently, Lloyds of London responded to TI's open letter. And what I've actually done is that I've gone over to another website where they have that response. And basically, I'm on allhiphop.com, and they say that Lloyd's response goes like this: we cannot, unfortunately, undo the past, but we would like to play an active role in trying to level the playing field for Black and minorities, ethnic people in today's world. On 10th of June, we announced an initial action plan that focuses on education, research, and a significant funding for charities and other organizations that promote opportunity and inclusion for Black and minority ethnic colleges. There's much more to do, and we will work with our culture advisory group to determine our long-term plans, right? So that's Lloyd in London's response to TI's letter, but it looks like TI in return responded to that letter, right? So it goes on August 12th, 2020. I am in receipt of your company's response to the open letter I sent representing the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade. Although we appreciate reaching out and again stating Lloyd is deeply sorry for its role in the transatlantic slave trade, we find Lloyd's action to rectify the situation to be admirable but insufficient. The concept of leveling the playing field that you refer to in your letter is a concept that does not sufficiently address the 400 plus years of oppression, marginalization, and inequality. It does not address in an expedient way how Lloyd's intends to dedicate a considerable percentage of your 56 billion empire that Lloyd built off the backs of our ancestors to fight the lingering effects of the shameful role your company played in the transatlantic slave trade, from systematic oppression and injustice to substandard living conditions and education for our children, to the malicious cycle of mass incarceration and the continuous genocide of our people at the hands of the descendants of colonizers who fight to perpetuate this atrocity in the name of law enforcement. We have suffered long enough. While Lloyd's vision may assist a precious few that you deem appropriate, it still leaves millions of disadvantaged in dealing with social injustice, systematic oppression, and economic ownership, wealth disparity, while still struggling tenaciously to build a sustainable economic base to generate generational wealth and ownership with our communities. Considering Lloyd's funded, financed, and insured the architects of the transatlantic slave trade, which laid the foundation for institutional racism, assumed inferiority, and the lack of opportunity that still plagues our community today. It is our conclusive belief that Lloyd has a moral obligation to do its part to eradicate the effects of slavery that have festered in America for generations. Everyone except African American people have benefited or profited from the transatlantic slave trade. There are reasons you should find it in your conscience to fulfill atonement to a nation and race of people who deserve to decide for ourselves how best to address this atrocity. For us, having the ability to make our own decisions on how we, the descendants, are made whole by Lloyd's imperative, having Lloyd's cultural advisory group make those decisions is colonist and patronizing. It assumes your company knows what is best for us. It presumes we cannot stand as a strong people and determine our own fate and the resources we are due that were earned by our ancestors. Lloyd presumes to tell us what it needs to do to make us feel better. We want to cast off the yoke of these paternalistic views and decide for ourselves how to heal our own communities. Perhaps the inability to see it this way derives from an absence of information. Conceivably, this can be a positive entryway into a teachable moment. So there you have it. That is TI's open letter to Lloyds of London and Lloyds of London's response with TI's subsequent reply to their response. Now, here's the thing. This is where it kind of gets interesting because, in my opinion, what this could have led up to is a lawsuit. This probably could have ended up in a lawsuit against Lloyds of London for the people uh, who are descendants of slaves, right? And I'm not sure how such a lawsuit could have actually, taken place. And I'm not even sure if it's actually something possible under the rules of law, whereby you have people coming back 400 years, or the descendants of slaves coming back 400 years to actually sue a company for its role in the slave trade. I'm not sure how something like that could work in the court of law, but certainly I think something like that morally probably should be done in law. There's a lot of companies out there that actually benefited from the transatlantic slave trade, and Ti actually, uh, he's come out and he's actually using his platform and his followers to actually attack Lloyd's in London and try to get them to own up for their role in the transatlantic slave trade, right? And then you can see clearly in these letters that Lloyd's of London is actually admitting to their role in the slave trade. However, what Ti is saying is that their commitment is short sighted, and it basically is only going to benefit a few people whom they think deserve to receive reparations. And he's essentially saying that's not enough. So I guess we can ask the legitimate question is that, does was Ti actually targeted for his activism? And we can see that, this probably was only the beginning, right? There's hundreds of other companies out there that have benefited from the slave trades, and there was, and we all know that there's several other issues in the community that needs to be addressed. And I think the people who are most likely to be successful into addressing these issues are people who have a platform, right? And I'm not saying that Ti is, this brilliant, activist, and I'm not saying that, he's Martin Luther King or anything like that. But what I'm saying is that he has made the step to actually address some of the things that are suffering in our community, right? So it's a fair question: is he being targeted because of his activism and because of the danger he presents to the establishment? Now, what I'll say is, me personally, I don't think that he was targeted. I think because of this, I think he's being targeted, but I think he's being targeted for this dispute that him and Sabrina Peterson has, and she's basically just trying to destroy him, right? So I think that's the reason he's being targeted. But who knows? Who knows? Someone could have probably paid Sabrina Peterson to make these accusations. Someone could have possibly paid her to come after Ti, in this manner. Who knows? I'm not saying that it's an impossibility that Ti is being targeted for his activism. So that's pretty much it for this video. I just kind of wanted to explore the possibility that Ti could be targeted because of his activism. Let me know if you think this is a coincidence. In my personal opinion, Ti is probably one of the most active entertainers who've basically spoken out for equality and compensation for the descendants of slaves. I've not known any other rapper, musician, artist to do this. And people are saying that the powers that be wants to put him in check. It could be that this whole thing with Sabrina Peterson is just a coincidence. Who knows? Or, according to some conspiracy theorists, perhaps Sabrina Peterson was actually paid to, uh, you know, attack Ti on in public this way. You guys, let me know what you think. Questions, comments below. Do you think this is just a coincidence, or do you think Sabrina Peterson is being paid as a pawn in this whole game? Do you think that companies like Lloyd's of London have some type of agenda to destroy Ti? I'm not alleging that they have. I'm just throwing a theory out there. And let me know what you guys think. Questions and comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe.